Alrighty, what's up guys, Single Player Nacho here. I hope you're up for a fright, a sloppy, slimy B.O.W. kind of fright. These are 10 of the scariest monsters in the Resident Evil series, Part 2. Scary is subjective, whether you're scared of monsters that look like 8-foot tall bald men, or the mystique and haunted lore behind the B.O.W. itself. I mean, look at this thing, it's gross. Whatever you're afraid of, I promise you these creeps will have your skin crawling and running towards the nearest PRL 412. So let's get to it. First up, Resident Evil 6, NOGA SKAKANJE. This thing is ugly. It is so horrifically designed in a good way. The NOGA SKAKANJE offers your typical multiple eye Javo face, which is already pretty scary. But then you get to this thing's torso, which is gruesomely opened, and to top it all off, or bottom it all off, two nasty giant cockroach legs. And it even carries around a machine gun. If something this ugly put some bullets in me, I'd be pissed. But do not fear, the NOGA SKAKANJE is pretty easy to put down. Unfortunately, while it's still alive, however, it creepily jumps over the player like some rabid spider demon. And worse yet, it kicks you around. The scariest thing about the NOGA is that it really doesn't make any sense. It's just terrifying to look at. Next up, Resident Evil 5, NDIPAYA. Members of the NDIPAYA are much more than just a bunch of scary demonic faces. Don't get me wrong, the look on the NDIPAYA is 60% of why they're on this list. But scarier yet is the tribe's history. Passing through the ancient tombs of Resident Evil 5 and all the crazy boulder shit that's happening, you probably missed the various wall paintings that describe a truly disturbing fate. The flower found in the underground caverns gave the NDIPAYA great strength and holy powers, but eventually, animals began to feed on that flower, and it turned them into ravenous flesh-eating beasts, kind of like the majority of Resident Evil films. Human sacrifices were performed in order to keep the vicious beasts fed, but the animals escaped the caverns and nearly obliterated the NDIPAYA population. These deadly scenes are clearly depicted on the underground murals. What these people went through is horrifying enough to make it on this list. Next up, Resident Evil 3 Hunter Beta. Of all the hunters, the Hunter Beta is easily the most terrifying. Hunters are vicious creatures, but the Beta are the corrupted, mutating pus version, born to hunt and sniff you out from miles away. There's just not a lot any normal, non-boulder punching person could do against one of these things. And that's the majority of all of us. A Hunter Beta will decapitate and obliterate pretty much anything that stands in its way, making it an ultimate predator of sorts. I can't think of a single animal that would be able to keep it from the top of the food chain, and that's quite the frightening thought. Plus, they're kept in spooky looking Bacta tanks. It genuinely feels like it's watching your every move. Next up, Resident Evil 0, PROTO TYRANT. Say hello to the very first Tyrant ever produced, the PROTO TYRANT. Actually, don't say hello, just run as far as you can. Nothing on this earth would make me stay anywhere near this face. Couple that with its outer organs, its skin texture, 8-foot tall buff physique. Everything about the PROTO TYRANT is scary. But even crazier than that is that this thing is actually a failed experiment. In fact, that's incorrect. It's more of a test subject before the real experiment, which would be the later Tyrant series we'd have to endure. The PROTO TYRANT is like a junkyard of test experiments. I can't even begin to think about what the unlucky fellow underneath all that B.O.W. juice was put through. I mean, I don't want to keep talking about the PROTO TYRANT's face, but just look at it. This former human was put through so much shit by Umbrella. He looks possessed. PROTO TYRANT also has some decent scares throughout Resident Evil 0, so that boosts its scare factor. Next up, Resident Evil 7, Dolores. If you're ready for a haunt, meet Dolores, a D-series mummified fetus. No, it doesn't attack you, it's actually not even breathing. But the insane story behind Dolores will send shivers down your Ethan Winters' spine. The connections created 8 D-series prototypes, bioweapons created out of female human embryos. But these D-series girls were extremely tormented by the process. 3 of them died in a murder-suicide incident, 4 died naturally, and 1 was killed before it even reached infancy. Dolores seems to have been the luckier ones, dying from unnatural, natural causes, but the single scariest aspect about Dolores is the pain that completely encapsulates her appearance. What did this innocent girl go through? What did she see? That is terrifying in itself. Resident Evil 7 is clearly inspired by voodoo and black magic horror, and Dolores is one piece of witchcraft no one wants to be a part of. Next up, Resident Evil Village, VARCOLAC Alpha. Resident Evil Village is filled with scary stuff, but for some reason, each and every one of the vaudeville/classic horror trope monsters have very terrifying mouths. Not a feature I thought I'd be talking about, but the VARCOLAC Alpha has the scariest mouth of all. It almost appears as if it were ripped from corner to corner with hardly any muscles or tissues to sustain it from falling off of its face. Then again, the VARCOLAC Alpha's sharp and endless teeth will easily rip you to shreds in no time. The closer you look, the more details you'll find. Compared to regular VARCOLACs, the Alpha seems to have been impaled various times with spears. Whether these spikes were stabbed on there by its cut from the game handler, or villagers that tried killing the beast, is unknown. I theorize that it's the Alpha of the VARCOLAC because it's the oldest, making it the hardest to kill. Next up, Resident Evil 6, UBISTVO. As every Resident Evil fan knows, chainsaws are the worst, but monsters with chainsaws? Holy hell. The UBISTVO doesn't even hold a mechanical chainsaw. It uses a harshly constructed, homemade bone saw, which I would imagine it was created using its own parts. Gross. It's hard to choose a specific part on the UBISTVO that scares me the most, as it is a transformer of terror. Every corner on this thing is slimy, twitching, bloody, and flesh-filled. From the way the UBISTVO walks, the sounds it makes, and the way I'm definitely butchering its pronunciation, very scary stuff. Next up, Resident Evil 4, GARRADOR. Whatever you find locked up inside the Salazar castle in Resident Evil 4 is gonna be horrible and sharp. At first glance, the GARRADOR seems pretty subdued. You can run circles around him and he won't even move a muscle. But as soon as he feels a human presence very close by, all hell breaks loose. You have to think about the implication behind El GARRADOR. Whoever this man was before his entrapment, he grew to utterly despise human beings, like some wild animal. What the hell was done to this guy? Proof of this is found through his eyeballs that have been sewn shut. The yelps and screams that the GARRADOR makes is completely unintelligible, leading me to believe that his tongue was cut out. There is just an insane amount of rage behind this monster. You gotta wonder what horrors he endured. Next up, Resident Evil Revelations 2, Splasher. Oh man, take one look at the Splasher and it looks like it had been plucked from hell itself. A blob of human body parts meshed into a singular being, and it's all downhill from there. Take a closer look and it legitimately is just that. Some brilliant mind thought to put an arm, a leg, 2 separate heads and organs to create a weapon of sorts. Fucking genius. It also features ropes and braces so that the Splasher doesn't just completely fall apart. It's just a discombobulated mess. The scariest thing about the Splasher, outside of everything, is the doll-like, twitchy movement as it makes its way towards the player. I mean, what the hell are you gonna do besides shit yourself and run? And last but certainly not least, Resident Evil 2 Remake, MR.X. Now there's just an obvious reason why I didn't want to include MR.X on the Scariest BOWs list. Let's just separate the monster from the memes for 1 second. And if you really think about it, the T00 Tyrant is one frightening fedora user. There is absolutely, positively, zero emotion in this thing's face as it stalks and pummels you to the ground. His body is covered up head to toe, like, who dressed this dude up? Honestly, can you imagine Mr. X tying up his own boots? No way. Jokes aside, there are some very surprising Mr. X pop-ins throughout Resident Evil 2 Remake, and he will make you feel completely powerless in harder difficulties. The sounds of his footsteps echoing throughout the RPD. Can you ever really forget about them? The sense of impending doom Mr. X brings, along with his stalker-like tendencies, easily makes him one of the scariest B.O.Ws in Resident Evil history.
Oh my god.
Well, thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Which B.O.W. did you think was the scariest? And did you shit yourself when you encountered it? Let me know down in the comments below. TMI is not a thing on this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more horror lore, lists, and mysteries. Have an awesome rest of your day, and as always, stay single.